Greetings, and thanks for joining us for this virtual series we call Cultivated Spaces. I'm Michael Boriskin, the Artistic and Executive Director of Copland House, and I'm very glad to welcome you from Aaron Copland's National Historic Landmark home, which is the site of a creative center for American music. This Cultivated Spaces series grew out of the pandemic as we transitioned the public concerts our Music from Copland House ensemble normally gives to premiere here and now the 6 new pieces we commissioned for our annual Cultivate Emerging Composers Institute. And we're so pleased to have I Care If You Listen, powered by the American Composers Forum, as our exclusive media partner. This program features the composer Inti figgis-vizueta and the evocative and striking piece she wrote for us called New Cosmologies. One of the interesting aspects of the piece, as Inti will explain shortly, is that the piece is entirely improvised, which of course has the composer investing the performers with real agency and bringing composer-performer interaction to a whole new level. And we're going to have a special treat of hearing not one, but 2 complete performances of the piece. And it'll be fascinating to hear how very different those 2 improvised renderings will be. But before we hear them, both played by our Music from Copland House ensemble, Inti's going to tell us a bit about the origins of the work and how she came to write it. And between the 2 performances, Inti and Derek Bermel, Cultivate's director, will chat about composing. Our performers are clarinetist Moran Katz, violinist Paula Garcia, cellist Alexis Pia Gerlach, and pianist Margaret Kampmeier. But first, let's welcome Inti.
Hi everyone, my name is Inti figgis-vizueta, and it's my absolute pleasure to present New Cosmologies for the Music at Copland House's Cultivated Spaces series, which is a series of 6 pieces that were written written for August 2020 for the Cultivate week-long workshop. This year happened online, so we were mostly kind of meeting multiple times per day, checking in about rehearsals, about talking about music, discussing various technical, compositional problems and issues and solutions, which was really fun. My piece, New Cosmologies, really kind of relied and asked for an intense rehearsal process from the players, focusing on their own interpretations of very visual objects, of lines and different symbols in relationship with one another, that they then eventually came together and navigated through together, creating some really beautiful music. Today, I'm not sure when this is presented, we will see 2 run-throughs, 2 performances of this piece, both of which really capture its spirit and but are radically different at the same time. I really hope you enjoy. Thank you so much, and please enjoy New Cosmologies.
Hi, my name is Derek Bermel, and I am the program director for Cultivate. And I'm so happy today to be joined by Inti figgis-vizueta, whose piece New Cosmologies we just heard, the clarinet quartet that we just were listening to. And welcome, Inti.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yes, and in case you hear my cat meowing behind me, that's I take full responsibility, but no musical responsibility for his decisions. Um, Inti, this is a fascinating piece, and the audience won't know that the players were playing off what we call a graphic score, which doesn't actually have the notes or rhythms written into it, but the players were kind of interpreting and were preparing their interpretations. And this was a really interesting process because they worked with you throughout the week on, and and you were attuning them to listen to each other in different ways and work together. And so, can you tell us a little bit about the process, what you set up in this piece, and how they're interacting and listening?
Yeah. So I mean, this piece was a departure for me in some ways too. Like I work in kind of nonlinear and graphic or gestural means a lot of the time, but this was the first piece that actually didn't have any notes or rhythms dictated or given. Instead, I thought to kind of try and construct a whole bunch of different little modules that both had kind of the potential for an individual interpretation and a group interpretation. So let's say like one squiggle might mean like one gesture on the violin. It could also mean the group's texture or registration going in that way. And so I think trying to have that kind of duality built into how I was constructing the images themselves was really important. Um, Another bit was kind of trying to think about a process for coming to the piece after being kind of isolated in, in the ways that we all are kind of currently quarantined, where there could be kind of an amount of work done before you were in the room. One thing I find with graphic scores in general is just that there's kind of an amount of space between the beginning of the first rehearsal and maybe like the middle of the second, where like no one kind of knows what they're doing, and so you're just kind of like, you know, building that, yeah, you know, building that vocabulary, building that lexicon, whatever. Um, and so I really wanted to try and kind of give them a process that they could undergo by themselves that could then inform how then they came together as a group. And so a big part of that was something that I asked of the players, which was to kind of study the score, which is you know, something that we know as composers very well, of like, you know, listening to music and like looking really closely, like, oh, how did that thing happen? And trying to harness that as a tool that and also like performers have like incredible score study practices that like, you know, I'm not super familiar with, but I know that there's like a level of expertise there as well. And so asking people to undergo that process of looking at each image and kind of um, allowing physical tendencies of their instrument to kind of really guide their interpretation of a certain image felt like it was building a series of those physical actions that then when they came into the space together, they had this kind of material under their fingers that then they could use to relate to one another and build in real time.
Wow. Well, I mean, so you're really working off things that they have learned and studied in their through their career, just in the same way that you would if you were presenting them with notes and rhythms. But you're attuned to a lot of their processes of listening and interacting together and trying to activate those in a different way, I suppose.
Totally.
How was the week working with these players? How did they respond to these suggestions, and where did they go with it?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. I think it's always like, I don't want to say it's always a crapshoot. I don't know. Maybe bleep that out if you need to. But you know, when you're kind of building things like this, like when you're not using traditional notation, there is kind of a like, I think as much love as I put into this thing is going to be like seen by the players and like reflected back and reflected out, and people will be able to hear it and all that stuff. And I really felt that way when yeah, the clinic quartet came together, where it just felt like there were four different, very distinct but very like interested minds kind of approaching this, with a variety of like experiences towards interpretation of similar things, or of like focus on process, or focus on yeah, like the way of approaching a thing. So I mean, it was amazing, like, you know, in the sense that this was also one of the first pieces that, or sorry, not even, it was the first piece that was live since everything locked down in March of 2020. It also, the piece, like, so much of the love that was put into the piece was also like this excitement about people playing music together in a space together, and, you know, being able to react in real time without lag or latency being an extra filter for how we're kind of interacting and responding and all that stuff. So it was really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this was just written under such strange conditions, and we may never have a period like this. Well, hopefully, we will never have a period like this again. Maybe we'll have another. But so, how did that orient your whole process of writing music? I mean, how do you usually write music? Was it drastically different, the process of writing a piece during the pandemic, or your kind of artistic emotional state at the time?
Yeah. Definitely did affect it. I mean, I think in the sense that I really try and construct each piece for the people who have the privilege of writing it for. Um, there are a lot of concerns when I know that, I mean, not only like face-to-face time physically, but also even Zoom wise, like there's a lot of fatigue that you get even talking on something like this for an hour. So, you know, in the sense that like in regular times, like I would be able to sit in the room and be very quiet and just absorb for an hour, and then speak to them for a little bit and then absorb again. That isn't there as much in any of the pieces that I'm writing these days. But and well and so I guess the result of that is that some pieces are actually like quite a bit more conservative than I've been in the past. You know, they actually do have notes and rhythms on the page, because I know that it might be the easiest way to have someone unlock some of that creative and interpretive potential. To something like this, where I'm like, okay, you know, I've seen the music that these folks play. You know, we have a bit of time together. This Cultivate itself is a program that's kind of trying to give us more time than usual, to construct something. So with that little bit of more time, even though we're remote, I'm going to try and like make something that pushes, instead, you know. And so I think that there's this constant like back and forth kind of balance of considerations and background and training and context that's all kind of informing it.
And you
Yeah.
said, I mean, speaking of the back and forth, you were mentioning in terms of indigenous peoples, you said to imagine a future. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing. You have to reimagine the past, which is a very powerful statement, and a kind of a balancing statement as well.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's a it's a focus of a lot of my work is this idea that like through contemplation of memory and interaction and uh, I mean, and this all is kind of a musical endeavor, you know, that I think that the kind of listening that we do as musicians and composers and stuff is one where like the abstracted, let me think of how to say this. I love sound itself because it has this abstracted quality. It does, you know, its meaning is contextual, its meaning is relational. And so when we build relationships and we build processes that are kind of trying to blur things or trying to imagine new futures or new pasts, it's something that music has the capacity to do. And so this piece in particular was, you know, the title itself, New Cosmologies, is about this kind of process of constructing, yeah, like new imaginaries for the future and the past.
Well, we actually, for this piece, we had the chance to record two versions because it's different every time. That's one of the things that's fascinating to me about this piece, is that it has the potential for such differences between performances and such new energy that comes into each performance. And so the players recorded two versions of this with music for Copland House. So we'll hear the second version now, and I wanted just to tell our audience that next week at this time we're going to hear Sunbin Kim's piece Slow Cancellation, and we'll be talking with the composer about that piece. But let's now hear a second version, if I can call it version, I don't know, but a second performance of Inti Figgis-Vizueta's New Cosmologies. And thank you so much, Inti, for joining us today.
Thank you again.
you.